To be successful, you want to be the person people want to work with. We were able to close deals with customers with a product that was so early and so unripe because they trusted us, because they wanted to work with us. We hired amazing talent into a team that had a super insecure future. But people put their bets with us. They gave us a chance because they wanted to work with us. The account executives, the big SAP executives, they saw, okay, wow, these guys, yeah, they're young and they're crazy and they're doing it outside the big process, but they're doing it right and the customers love them and we want to be part of this energy.
Welcome to Roll Right In, a podcast exploring the success strategies of thriving entrepreneurs and leaders.
We believe the big challenges in this world can only be solved by the courageous.
Today we have Stefan Ritter on the show.
Hi Fabian, hi Ole, it's great to be here.
As a VP product for SAP Learning, Stefan leads a global team overseeing SAP's education business with its 26 million users. Before moving into the tech industry, Stefan was a designer for renowned architecture firms such as MAD Architects in Bejing and Toyo Ito Associates in Tokyo. As head of design, he was involved in developing the Zeitz Museum of Contemporary Art, Africa in Cape Town. Stefan joined SAP in 2016 and has successfully led various teams and initiatives. One of the most interesting is his role as an intrapreneur and founder of the corporate venture SAP Ruum, which he had led from a $2.5 million seed funding to its final reintegration into SAP. What does it take to be a successful intrapreneur?
Stefan, great to have you on the show. For those of our viewers who do not know the significance of SAP for the global economy, can you just elaborate a bit on this?
We are one of the biggest tech companies you probably have never heard of. We're a B2B company, which means we only sell our software to other businesses. Pretty much every company in the world is an SAP customer. There's this number that's out there that 70% of all of the world's transactions run through our systems. And so to put that in context, that's more transactions than Alibaba, eBay, and Amazon combined that we process on a daily basis.
So if SAP wouldn't run smoothly, then this would have a real impact on the economy.
To give an example, this is one of the reasons why it was so difficult for us and why it took us a bit longer than other tech companies to exit Russia. Because if we exit a country, that means the food supply chain breaks down. It means hospitals have problems running. It means all the logistics and transport services in the country come to a halt. And so ideally, you never hear about us because typically people only hear about us when something goes wrong, like payrolls don't get paid or letters and parcels don't get delivered. But that's it. That's the responsibility that we as a company have.
Interesting.
So there's very little room for error. How do you make sure, on the one hand, to make all your processes run smoothly, and on the other hand, try experiments for new innovations?
It's very difficult to make a change to a complex running supply chain system. I'll give you one example of why innovation can be very difficult. An update to a supply chain management software of one of the biggest car companies in Germany. There was a bug in the update that caused the processing of trucks arriving in the warehouse to go from, it took about 1 second to process to up to a minute. And this delay in processing the trucks coming in caused an entire traffic jam all the way up to the highway, to the point where certain mission critical pieces had to be delivered via helicopter because they would have stopped the supply chain if they wouldn't have arrived in time. We fixed it all. All the traffic jams are gone. All the supply chains are running again. So that was all okay. But this is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to make radical changes in these systems. So what we do is we really have three types of innovation. One is we have the incremental small innovations that happen partially in running systems, partially in systems and updates that are coming out. And the other way we do it is SAP has two venture arms that we use to invest and incubate ideas outside the main business. We have Sapphire Ventures, which is a venture fund that invests mainly in late stage ventures, Series C and upwards. And we have SAP.io, which invests into early stage, seed and early stage ventures. And also as SAP employees, there's this unique opportunity for us to pitch to the venture funds directly and have an opportunity to get investment and start our own businesses within the SAP family. And this is one of the things that my team and I did.
It's ambidextrous approach, right? So on one hand, you on the running system, you make minor improvements, basically, right? And on the other hand, you have like separate boats, fast boats, where you then really get a space where you are for your own and protected from the big company. Is that correct?
That's exactly the challenge is, can a corporate venture fund or a corporate venture really truly be as agile as a startup? Or is this kind of a conundrum that cannot be resolved? So SAP.io has 4 principles how they invest in ideas. The first principle is this a big enough market? You need to have a market where it's realistic for SAP to eventually be able to own at least 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion of that market for it to be a big enough bet for SAP to go after. So that's number 1. Is it a big enough market? Number 2 is, what's SAP's right to win? Can this corporate venture leverage something of SAP's existing strengths, existing portfolio in order to win in this new market? So big enough market, SAP's right to win. And then the third principle is, do you have an amazing founding team? Do we believe in them? Are they domain experts? Are they passionate? Are they ready to do what needs to be done? Are they persistent enough? And then the fourth and final principle is this idea VC fundable? Can you give this team a relatively small amount of money, something between 200,000 and 2 million as a first seed investment in order for them to test this idea? Everything that's more than that is not, for us at least, considered VC fundable. That's like long-term investments of multiple hundreds of millions into bigger ideas like investigating AI, for example, or the quantum computer. Those are big investments that are not necessarily VC fundable, at least from SAP's IO's perspective. I know that a lot of VCs out there are going into that space, that's clear. But for IO, those are the 4 principles.
Stefan, you are one of the co-founders of SAP Ruum. If we travel back in time to the beginning of this first initial idea, can you tell us a bit about your role as an entrepreneur?
That's correct. I'm one of the co-founders. The other co-founder is Florian Frey. We were doing job shadowing at Daimler, at one of our customers. Job shadowing is when you go in as a consultant or just as somebody who wants to innovate, and you watch people work and you try to monitor and understand how do they work, what are the daily struggles, how can we improve the software for them based on how we see them actually using it in their day job. So in this case, we were monitoring supply chain managers that were handling supply chain management exceptions at Daimler. This is how we initially got the idea, because we saw that there was such a big challenge around how to work with business objects or business data, especially when it's an exception. So most business systems are incredibly good at automatically resolving most business problems. I think 97% of all problems are handled automatically by the systems. But 3% of the exceptions that are too complicated to automate are handled by supply chain managers, for example. That was our initial idea. How can we make it easier to work with business objects, especially in the case of an exception where all the standard processes and frameworks fall apart or don't work? And so that's how we started, and that's how we created Ruum. And Ruum became a no-code, low-code business process engine built around SAP systems.
When you go back, when you had to pitch this to the bosses, can you go through these 4 steps?
If you think about all the implementation partners, Infosys, Accenture, Deloitte, IBM, and so we said, okay, our addressable market is, we can take a sizable chunk out of this $400 billion IT system customization market. So that was how we said it's a big enough opportunity. And the second question was around, okay, what's SAP's right to win in this market? And here we had a very simple answer. Most of the business systems out there are already SAP or are connected to SAP systems. All of the big companies in the world run SAP. So their SAP's right to win is very clear. We're already in all these accounts. This is something we need to build on top or around SAP systems and other business systems, say Salesforce or Oracle or what have you. The third point is this an amazing team? Florian and I argued we are. because together we had the perfect match of skills. My background was more technical. His background was more from a go-to-market sales perspective. And so in that sense, we brought together everything you need in a team of two in order to test this idea and build it and bring it to market. The fourth question was, is it VC fundable? And there it was also an easy yes, because when we said how much seed money we needed, we would say, look, we can bring this to market with a team of 5. We needed a team of 5 for 1 year. And then I don't exactly remember how much money we asked for in seed investment. It was a lot less than we in the end got. So our investors ended up giving us, I think, 3 or 4 times more. So they ended up giving us $2.5 million to bring it to market. And those 2.5 million, I think, lasted for us we lasted almost 3 years with that 2.5 million to bring out the first 3 versions and find the first product market fit.
What were your next steps from there? Plus, what were some of the biggest challenges you were confronted with?
We knew we needed an engineer to help us build the first version. So we hired 2 amazing software engineers, both actually within SAP, people we knew. And with the 4 of us, we went and built the first version and started to bring it in front of customers as fast as possible. So that was really the main challenge, was can we get enough data to validate our assumption that this is a market worth pursuing, and this is a problem that we can actually solve, and it's a problem worth solving. So that was the most important thing. And I think we were able to get 2 big, large enterprise accounts engaged in our alpha that we launched 3 months after getting the funding.
That's cool, 3 months.
Very fast.
You often hear this, something like if you're not embarrassed by your first version of your product, you did it wrong. I can tell you we were very embarrassed by the first version. But it's good because we made sure that even as basic and bare bones as it is, does it already solve a problem for our customers? And we were able to say, yes, it does. There's a few things that we put in there that was already enough for a big company like Beiersdorf to take one of the departments and test the product with us, which is significant because they have a business where their supply chain is so complex and there's so much happening in it that putting that at risk, say just a shutdown of 1 hour would be tens of millions of euros in damage.
The big ship, how do they make sure and control what you're doing? So you go out with your beta or alpha version to a client. After this, you have to go to the directors or to the VCs and show them the proof. And then they say, okay, now you can approach the next 3 or 5 clients. Or how does that work?
We were able to do a lot of what we did outside of SAP standard processes because Florian had so many connections into SAP and knew the sales force and was able to call them and say, listen, I'm working on this corporate venture. It's a cool thing. Will you give us some airtime with your customer? And that's how we were able to work around most of SAP's processes, just through personal connections and personal favors. This is so important when you do corporate venturing. The main company, most people there, completely understandable from my perspective as well, they see you as an annoyance, as something that is, you're not making that much money, you're time consuming, you're more work, you're putting big deals at risks, because a big SAP deal it's like 150 million euros. Like those are the kinds of deals that people are working on in SAP. And then we're coming with a deal that at maximum will be 200K. And they're like, you're putting 150 million euros at risk for a 200K deal? Get out of my account. Don't talk to me. And so that's a real problem. And we were able to work around it through personal relationships.
Can you tell us a bit about how you took advantage of your personal relationships and how they were willing to take that risk together with you?
The example I just gave with the deal is almost flipping it around. What the sales executives who worked with us were the ones who understood that the company that is going to sign this $150 million deal with SAP also needs SAP as an innovation partner, as a company that they can work with, and they make a deal and they know we're going to be there to help them, be with them the next 10, 20 years throughout innovations that happen in the market. And so the way they positioned us is they said, look, yes, we have this complex supply chain management ERP system deal with you, But when you do this with us, you also get these little innovations we're working on. For example, let's look at one in particular, and let's look at Ruum. And so that's how we were able to come in and say, that's how they pitched us. That's how they gave us the opening into those accounts. And so, so that's kind of the personal relationship, was that the account executives knew Flora and they knew myself and they trusted us and knew that we can go in, work with the customers and do all this while not putting the big deal at risk, but actually in the way we do it, we add value to the account and to SAP overall and SAP's brand. And so I think that was how we got in with that. That's how we did our initial first deals. And once they saw that we can do this, then it was also easier to us to say, look, what we did with Stuff, we can also do with you and your account and your customer. And so that's how we then took that to the next big accounts.
How important are your interpersonal skills and how do they correlate to the success of your venture?
Our interpersonal skills are what made us successful. And this doesn't have to be true for everyone, right? And so, like some founders aren't good at interpersonal skills, and then you have to hire someone who is. So I think that's the other key thing is it's important to know your strengths and your weaknesses and be aware of your biases and then hire accordingly and build a team accordingly. I think if you are an introvert, shy founder, then your first key hire needs to be someone who balances that and can be this person that is more outgoing and can bring people into the fold. That's my experience. That's what worked for us. Even business software in the end is bought by people, right? Even though it's for a business process, for a supply chain, for a logistics chain, for something that is sort of just business, it's operated by people. The signature that signs a deal is done by a person. And so typically those people want to get something out of it. They want to get a promotion. They want to look better within the company. Or they just want to solve a problem for their team. So in the end, also those business decisions are made for and by people. And that's why I think interpersonal skills are just so important in pretty much anything you do. Business in the end is built on relationships. It always is. And so and this goes back to your point, Ole, right? We need to make sure we're best friends with our partners because we're going to go through this together. What worked for me and what worked for Florian and I was to be successful, you want to be the person people want to work with. And that means both for customers. We were able to close deals with customers with a product that was so early and so unripe because we had a good relationship with these customers and because they trusted us and because they wanted to work with us. They wanted to do this and try this out with us. We hired amazing talent into a team that had a super insecure future. But people put their bets with us. They gave us a chance because they wanted to work with us, because they wanted to be in our team. And so, and similarly, the account executives, the big SAP executives, they wanted to work with us because they saw, okay, wow, these guys, yeah, they're young and they're crazy and they're doing it outside the big process, but they're doing it right and the customers love them and we want to work with them. We want to be part of this energy. And I think that's on a big scale, when you talk about SAP and implementation partners, it's true. And when you talk about small scale, us as a team of 5 to 10 to 15 people building something completely new, we were successful because we always said we want to be people who people want to work with.
Now, if we circle that back to the moment where SAP decided to merge you back into their mothership, was that without any friction, running smoothly, or were there some challenges and some things to be aware of?
When we reintegrated into SAP, we've been going for about 4.5 years. We had a team of, I think, full-time employees. We were around 20 full-time employees, and then we had 10 freelancers. And we had a revenue of we were making 500,000 ARR. Relatively small numbers, I think, for SAP. But what happened is that we were starting to line up enterprise-wide deals with some of SAP's biggest accounts. It was the customers themselves that went to SAP and went to the executives and said, listen, we're doing this 200,000 euro deal with this little startup of yours. And it costs our legal department to review new contracts, make exceptions, make amendments. Can't you just sell us this product as part of the overall deal we have with SAP instead of having us do a completely new due diligence with this little speedboat? And that's when they said, you know what, our customers are right. This is too critical to the SAP portfolio. You have to come back.
So what were some of the difficulties when you remerged then with the mother organization?
The number one difficulty, and this might be obvious, but still when you're in it, it's very painful, was culture. So we built a small team. We were super agile. We were running like a startup. We didn't adhere to the processes that SAP had already defined for products and for how to build something, how to make it enterprise ready. And so when we came into the big fold, when we came back into SAP, we had to fulfill all these standards. We had to fulfill all these processes. We had to go through all the checks and balances that you have to do as a standard SAP product. And that was really tough on the team. Stupid example, but we always had snacks in the office for our team. And so when we came back into SAP, that was a problem because that was a Geldwarte-Vorteil. We suddenly had to expense it in a certain way and then put it on the payroll and figure out how to tax it. And then it was so complicated, we ended up not doing it. And this is a small example, but this happened everywhere, in everything, in the way we delivered code, in the way we talked to customers, the emails we used, the email signatures. So that the culture and processes we had to go through were so painful that unfortunately, I think by now more than half the team has left.
Do you know about today how this ARR has increased already?
I think it's almost 10x. Many people say, or you hear often that SAP has the best sales force in the industry. And so what happens is when we acquire a company, we bring them in and we enable this massive sales force to push it into the market. And so just by doing that, we can already often quadruple the revenues of the companies we acquire.
Let's do the math real quick. So you got for your venture 2.5 million investments from the venture company SAP, right? And then you basically sold it back to SAP with an ARR of 500,000. So meanwhile, the whole Ruum piece or add-on has 10 times more ARR, so 5 million. So ARR, simply you can multiply by 7 at least, to have the valuation, that's 35 million. So you guys, the founders, you and your founder, you made out of 2.5 million, you made 35. So what's in for you guys now?
It was a revenue share model. So we were able to because normally if you start a company out there in the wild with normal real VC funding, you have equity, right? You have a cap table, and you incentivize also your early employees with the cap table as well. They be part of the success of the company. The way it was done at SAP.io was that the early employees, and I think it was the first 10, if I remember correctly, we would get a certain amount of virtual coins that would allow us to get a percentage of the revenue that we generate. So we had an incentive to create a product that scales revenue quickly because our bonuses, our equity was a percentage of the revenue.
Okay, thank you very much, Stefan. That was very interesting to go through your whole story. My takeaways is in one headline, network, your personal and your team's network into the existing organization, including your implementation partner and your clients, is crucial.
Thank you very much, Stefan.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you very much too. I like that discussion a lot.